ahead and call the meeting to order at 2:36 p.m. Thank you for all the good discussion this morning. I'm looking forward to the continuing work by our board and the leadership to get ready for the next meeting. If we can go ahead and call the roll, please.
And Rodriguez,
Here.
Dr. Cynthia Ritchie,
Here.
Kristen Sega,
Here.
Elsa Batiste.
Here.
Kristen Cowett. Yeah.
Stepped away.
Sarah Larkin Simons.
Here.
Al Escobales.
Correct.
I'm here. Patrice McCarthy. Here. Dr. Catherine Moreau. Here, Cynthia Sonia Moya.
So, approval of the minutes from May 11th. Any adjustments to the minutes? We will go ahead and pass them with general consent. Seeing none, they pass with general consent. Now we have public participation. If anyone signed up for public participation, we do not. We do not, and we have not received any virtual participation either. Otherwise, that would be. All right, so next we have announcements, administrative announcements. Karen?
Few items to share with the board. As you know, the board is in the process of updating regulations, education regulations. So my task is to submit those regulations into the e-regulation system. So far, I have completed parts 1, parts 2, and parts 3. They've been uploaded to the e-regulation system. Parts 1 has passed from the is presently at OTG. Parts 2 and parts 3 are at OPM. So the process is each proposed regulation from any agency must pass through first the Office of Policy and Management, OPM, and then the Office of the Governor. Once those offices have approved of the proposed regulations, then the board will have to either open up public comment period for 30 days or have a public hearing on regulations. So we haven't gotten there yet because grants are still at OPM and OTG. And later during this session, the board will decide whether they choose to have a sponsor a public hearing or just rely on the public comment period. Also upcoming is the option for voting, other alternative methods of voting other than calling for a special meeting. Reports, the statutorily required reports for section 12B and section 14 have been completed. That is also upcoming on the agenda. And board is also currently undertaking working with FDE to review legacy legislation. So far, that is what I have.
Yes. Thank you for your work on that. Board business, we're continuing to put together the additional regulations. We had, and this will kind of go into the LPD, SPG, went to the SPE meeting this month, last Wednesday. Got these final regulations approved so we can continue doing these different parts of the regs so that Karen can factor that into the system for us. That part has been approved and we can continue with that work. She can continue that for them. And we have the working group also working on different components that are attached to specific parts of the regs. And once those are done, then we can put that whole section in. That's an entire section that has been updated. After that, I don't have any additional board business. Updates on the education committee. We are out of session, so there are none there. LPDC just gave you SBE meeting update on that one. Shannon is not here to give us the workforce connections, so we do have projects updates. So the Ed program approval working group looks like they're getting closer to kind of completing their sections. They did approach us with some of the topic specific smaller groups, coming up with ideas on where things could possibly be consolidated or expanded. We asked that they focus in specifically on the things that we need to get done for these regulations, and that anything new that they would like to bring forward that they could make a proposal similar to proposals that have been made in the past for the review of the board before moves forward into additional work. So that might be coming up. Then we have the birth to grade 3. I believe I have an update here that I can read off. EHEC or EHEC met at the end of May after constructing the proposed guidance for SDE and OEC. The proposed guidance received positive response and recognition for effectively addressing the birth to grade 3 general and integrated endorsement content competencies. There's a follow-up meeting where a subgroup will look at the details of the clinical experience required next week. And as clinical experience across the full age span, need more attention to ensure we have a viable pathway from associates to bachelor's degree. Your commitment to preparation, preparatory clinical experiences, and stackable degree is unwavering. And after the subgroup meeting, we will circle back to SDE and OEC for another vetting. And they've also discussed implementing the timeline as represented in regulation language where we're met with support timeline. So they're continuing their work on there. They're being very careful to ensure that it is what we. So thank you to them and the work that they have provided. Did I miss anything, Margaret, or did I? Perfect, thank you. Just wanted to make sure. So now we go into the presentation and discussions. I'm just going to go really quickly. This is the same slide deck as the last meeting. I just added a couple of things to it, and it's just for the general public. So if they were not here for the meeting earlier, that they can hear. So Karen, if you could kind of move forward to, I believe it's slide 5. So section 12B and section 14 have been completed. We'll be voting on those officially and removing them. So in terms of our statutory obligations, with the extension of our sunsetting date, we're really working on those sunsetting regulations and then our focus for the 2027 legislative session. And then if you can just to slide 12. Today, earlier today, we reviewed the findings of our survey data that had been tested. We agreed on some policy directions and narrowing down 1 or 2 concepts for us to work on. Then we'll be confirming alignment on legacy proposals during today's meeting as well. So that we have that ready for the August meeting. All right. You want to bring up? Or do you have any questions on that part? So we're going to go right into the action items and discussions then, since we did most of that conversation earlier today. And Luke, our facilitator, will provide us with the notes on that for the board to continue and the leadership group to continue working on it. So approval of regulations, public notice format. Karen mentioned earlier, once this goes through OPM and OTG, we have to provide public notice, and our board has to decide what format we want to use. So we would be voting on the 2 potential options. Karen, can you speak to that? I believe she has it up on the screen for us there. If you want to take a moment to read it over. Our two options is to open up public hearing for just written submission or to hold a public hearing in which we would have to be here for the public hearings like we do for legislation. So really up to the board to decide which they prefer for these, and this would be what we would do moving. This would be automatically when it's time to do our public notice, and we can do it for all the E-regs as they become approved by OPM and feel one way or the other as to whether it should be a public hearing where we are seated there listening to the public, or it should be written and then we kind of digest it and have conversations around it.
I would guess that if we choose to do the public comment period, there is the possibility that if someone makes a request, we would still have to hold a public hearing.
One caveat is there are certain requirements that have to be met in conjunction with the request.
If we had like an in-person public hearing, could people still write in, or is it one or the other?
You can still submit comments, written comments.
It would be just to kind of give you a sense, like, let's say that there are currently there's 3 cases, right? For part 1, part 2, part 3, those would all be individual hearings potentially, unless you were able to get them all in at the same time and put them on the same date. Still more to come.
Obviously, I think logistically, it would be easiest to have it just be written comment unless somebody requests and meets all the requirements. Because, we're kind of doing this as a volunteer job outside of all of our other jobs. So we'd have at least 4 people that would get class coverage. Even if we decided to do it as, a full day board meeting, so it's, not necessarily interfering with the rest of everyone's work schedules. If we have 3 separate parts going through regulations, that might be 3 separate public hearings. And that might start taking away from some of the time that our board has. If we're only meeting 3 hours a month and we spend 3 consecutive months doing public hearings, I don't know if that's the best use of our time and will kind of lock us into doing that instead of moving forward on like all the other agenda items we have. So I think it would make sense if we have it as public comments by written participation unless someone asks otherwise.
So I would cater a motion to have public notice be written participation unless otherwise requested based on that. So moved. Second. So moved by Kristen and seconded by Patrice. Right, any further discussion?
It's a logistical question. After we collect all of this written testimony, what would the process look like for us to review it and meet to discuss?
Normally, it's gonna be opened up on the portal. Be able to view the public comments. They will be reviewed and then that can be shared with the board.
Okay.
You can have time to respond. At least see what people are saying in their public comments. But they have to be reviewed as part of the process.
We wouldn't have to take another vote on them after that. So just,
So we would have to meet again to review it. So whether we have a public hearing or we meet to discuss the written testimony, we're still meeting more is my only.
I'm wondering if we have it as written, if we make it a line item on our agenda to kind of review those that have come in thus far.
Okay.
And then from there, that way we don't have to have an additional meeting. Yeah. We can also ask Karen to kind of look into that, what that process might look like as well. Is there any other discussion? So all in favor of recommending the written, pending any requests for otherwise? We're just gonna do your hand if you are in favor of. It's unanimous. You. Motion carries. Thank you. And then approval of 12B and 14 formal reports.
Let's move on to the next. This is just a question, and I apologize if it's obvious to everyone and not to me. So there's the regulations that are being put forward. It's through this board, which is semi-autonomous with the State Board of Education. Does the State Board of Education also concurrently have to have a public comment for these regulations, or is this like? There's a requirement to have regulations have a public comment period. Is that been examined by both boards?
No, it's just one public comment period. SDE is the sponsoring agency, even though this is a semi-autonomous board. So there's only one option, or should I say, one agency putting forward these regulations technically, and that's SDE.
So I think your question is, does SDE have to have the public hearing or do we have to have the public hearing? And maybe that's a good question to ask them or both.
Yeah, I mean, just due to it in this. In what, how these regulations move through the system, and it's just new that we have two boards and I just didn't know. So there's all this public comment. And sort of then what? Is it this board's, then what, or is it also the state boards?
It's not the state,
Sort of,
state board, it's gonna be, SDE is the department sponsoring these proposed regulations.
Not SBE, but SD, the ones that are sponsoring it. I think that it's a question to definitely bring back and see if we can get clarity on.
Absolutely.
So thank you. So we already approved the presentations. Karen had to put them into a formal report. We kind of fell into the situation last summer where the report was written after we had voted on saying yes, that we liked what was presented and that moved forward. And then we had to have a special meeting in July, I think it was, to just vote on it. It was literally like 15 minutes of a meeting. So to get ahead of that, these two reports were really already approved the information that we had decided on before. Karen just put them into the formal format. So we're just taking the formal vote to then move them forward so that she can pass them on and get them filed. So is there any discussion that we want to have around 12B or section or 14? We've had a chance to read them over. I would cater a motion then to approve report for section 12B and 14 to second. So moved by Patrice and seconded by Sarah. Any discussion? Seeing none, if you are in favor, please raise your hand. Is unanimous. Thank you.
Karen, thank you.
Next, Karen had sent out the calendar for the 2027 second year. If everybody had a chance to look it over, if you have a draft calendar for us, Karen. Sure. On the screen. Is there anything that anyone had noticed that we need to kind of account for? We really looked at the federal holidays, we looked at the religious holidays, tried to make sure that it avoided all things. So, and it follows a similar rhythm of 2 virtual, 1 in person, 2 virtual, 1 in person. Are there any adjustments that need to be made to it at this time? I would cater a motion to approve the 2027 meeting calendar for the EPCD. Tiffany made the motion. Have a second? Dr. Ritchie seconds. During any discussion, raise your hand in of the calendar. Looks like that is unanimous as well. Next is the deferral of the July meeting. Last year, July, most people were, this would also allow the leadership group to kind of take all the information from earlier today put it into something that we can consume and deliberate over in August. So we are getting a formal vote to defer the July meeting. We have a motion to defer the July meeting.
Motion to defer the July meeting.
That's Jenny Graves, second by Patrice. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, raise your hand if you are in favor. Again, unanimous. This is going fast. In-person meeting. All right, approval of legacy proposals. So if you can bring up the tracker of the proposals for us, Karen. And please scroll down. So ones that we had, I have to point glasses on to read it on my own screen here. So the educator certification oversight that had failed last year, so that's not moving forward. Reinstate transcript experience that had passed. Are we still in agreement in moving that forward? And that is those 400 or so certificates that are from out of state, out of country. Everyone's still fine with that? We have the sunsetting regulations in progress extension. We're not going to need that anymore because they've already extended it. We've got replacement language. So barring any, just it's not relevant anymore. So we'll be getting rid of that there. And it's regulation proposals for, those are just the batches. Those were already approved. So if you scroll down a little bit more.
And that's the problem.
Okay, thank you. So then what we have is the adoption of the revision of 24 regulations that Kristen had done for us, which is really just us changing the ones that we have amended and removing them from statute. And then identifying other ones that we did want to actually sunset, and that would assist us in the numbering of. Anything else in here? There was a professional educator scholarship, which was tabled by LPDC that we'll put on their August agenda. But I think for it to get into the governor's budget, doesn't it need to be looked at before that, when you guys start looking at the governor's?
He's gonna send out the these today sometime next week, by the end of the week, so as soon as we get back.
For our purposes, because of LPDC and SBE, can we still give that to you for them to review, and then we get through LPDC and then SBE and contingency?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So are we still in favor of that professional educator scholarship program? One thing that we're really getting rid of is just that sunsetting regulation provision, because it was already taken care of by the extension that the legislators gave us this year. So we are in approval of moving those forward to the 2027 session. We'll put them all into one packet for the August. Kind of put the final stamp on that. So need a motion then, because we've already approved the process. It's really just reviewing. Fine.
Review, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just review.
Start action items. Approval for items developed in the working session presentation. So based on the conversation, and look, I might need you to kind of jump in here for a quick second. What we had approved or discussed for potential approval and for our team to move forward on is endorsement of the team stipend, endorsement of the Teach Connecticut marketing, and endorsement of the software. And I can have a letter written up that we endorse that from all the works that support that. So,
Can repeat it one more time?
sure, yeah. I would cater a motion for our board to endorse the team stipend, the Connecticut Teach Connecticut marketing, and the software. And a letter be generated for our board to the state and the state board of education and the governor in support of his motion.
That's a problem.
So that these things right here that we are endorsing those things.
And it's the team mentor increase.
Team mentor increase is the Teach Connecticut marketing
And the teacher certification software.
That's a good question.
Sure.
When we talked about the team mentor stipend. Is that going to be unfunded mandate?
I'm not sure. I think they were looking for a governor line item to fund it because it's currently funded at 500 per, and I think they were looking for an increase. So it's still maintained at the 500, but it wasn't the increase per person. Per mentor that they were looking for. Increase, yeah. That would be endorsing an increase per mentor for the team.
State will all be endorsed.
For right now, just so I can start crafting the letter to move that forward. And then if there's other things that we want to endorse in the future, absolutely. But those are the kind of the three that we were talking about. And then we can work with the team to kind of craft that. And if we see some other things in the.
So just for the record, because of the minutes, does that mean we're not gonna be addressing the road course?
No, so this is just the endorsement part, and then our focus will be the next part. So for like us just to write a letter pretty much saying that we're putting the weight behind our board and supporting these three things in particular is what we're voting on right now. So it wouldn't be us actually like crafting legislation around it or regulations around it at this time. It's really just us support in these three areas. I cater a motion or endorsement of those three items. She has the three items written down. So that was the team stipend increase per person, the Teach Connecticut marketing and branding, and then the certification software.
So I make a motion that we write a letter endorsing mentor stipend increases, Teach Connecticut marketing, and the teacher certification software.
Second. Elsa seconds. Thank you. All right, any discussion?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
I just want to make sure that if we're endorsing the increase in the stipends, the cost wouldn't be an unfunded mandate for any of this. We don't want those costs to go back to the districts for sure.
Say a state funded stipend.
We have an amendment.
I would make a friendly amendment.
State funded team stipend.
Yes, I wish I had said that. Thank you for making that friendly amendment.
All right, do we have a second on the amendment?
I second the amendment. I have a question about the. So if you say state, that means we cannot look external under offset those.
Right, I believe right now it's not an external funder. I think it is a line item with the state currently.
I understand, so you're saying it, budget, right? Right. Budget is gonna be distributed based on the number of team training teachers that we have. Is that gonna predetermine the amount that they get? So say, for example, when we do registered apprenticeship, like I said earlier, those mentors getting $6,000. Just because that, I have to look at what the budget was, because it's so tiny.
I know, it was up on the screen earlier, so it was five.
So it's like 500,000, right? So you're 500,000.
Funding of 500, and I think
Basically, when I'm talking about funding all the mentors, $5,000 or $6,000. Are we going to, in this amendment, are we going to be staying and doing for the mentors? Or are we just asking for a blanket increase to budget?
I have a follow-up question to that, because is there a portion that's paid by the state now and districts can pay on top of that? Because the stipend amount for mentors is all over the place. We just looked at it when we were looking for the administrator mentor program through CAS. And teacher stipends are anywhere from 700 and something to 2,000.
Or $250?
Yeah,
The state sends you the 500 per team
a year.
candidate for the year. Districts, I know I worked in, we paid more based on what the contract, right? States, and we would pay that.
that would be more collective bargaining, what you're talking about, because the state gives the districts 500 per person.
Right.
So I
That
guess,
would be the minimum state funding, I think.
Yeah,
is what
right.
to clarify.
and if they pay more than that, then that's out of
That's on the
collective
by
bargaining
district.
by the district.
So I think we're talking about, I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page, the nomenclature. The mentor is the person who trains the team trains. That's the funding that we're.
Mhm.
Well, I don't know how that's different, if that's a state.
The bargaining unit piece, as Jen said, like if you look in the bargaining units for contracts, negotiations, it's all over the place. But that's why I was asking, is there a minimum like that the districts get from the state? And then I think states, because like Avon is very different from Lebanon in what they pay for a mentor.
So then are we gonna get some kind of consistency or just?
So, I mean, I think we can't control collective bargaining at this time. Each district is going to do their own contract. But the request was the current stipend being 500 to increase to 1,300 per year per team mentor. So are we still in agreement with that 1,300? I think it begs a good question, or is there a different amount that we think?
I'd be curious to know how many districts are paying under that 1,300 right now. It's like how many districts is that? Share something. Conversation.
Yes, you can.
Hello. Someone pass the microphone over just so the public can hear a little bit better.
So, yes, the way it works in statute is the state, from my understanding, and it's kind of stayed stagnant since statute was originally passed. So 250 from us, and then the district is supposed to put in at least 250, 500 total. Now, some districts, they will pay the mentor teacher the same as they pay someone who teaches an after-school club. Like, for example, and that goes district by district based on bargaining. So really, it is all over the place, right? So if you have some districts who are much smaller and that don't have those after-school programmings and clubs that some of our larger districts have, then that teacher is getting $500 a year before taxes for all of that work for mentorship. So, you know, you were talking before about cooperating teaching and team training. It's a huge motivator, right? So some of our districts are paying their mentors, like, I'll give you an example, right up the street, they have extra money going in, at least 1,500 to 2,000 more. So it all depends on where they are. So what the goal of this was originally was to just try to incentivize it a little bit more. And I think moving down the line, if something that this group might want to think about, especially when we're talking about team train as well as mentor teachers, is maybe separating those trainings. Because right now, if you want to be a cooperating teacher, it's all a part of team. But there are some people who don't want to do that or want to do the other thing. You know, so, you know, Jen, you spoke about re-upping your training. Well, the team training is generally about 4 days. So it's very intense. So just something to think about, but the goal really was to just try to be a real motivating factor for our mentors and for them to get compensated appropriately for the amount of work they're doing.
Yeah, so for the administrators on the board, if your district is paying 250 of that 500 and the state is paying you 250 to make that 500, should the language state that it continues, that the local district's contribution stays the same and the increases on the state side, or something else?
I wouldn't feel comfortable putting anything in writing that made an increase cost to any district right now, as we're all facing massive funding issues.
So then it would just be a friendly amendment was that it was state funded in stipend. It sounds like right now it's 50-50.
50-50. It has to be, there's both. Put it in.
The 500 is 50-50. That's how it's legislated.
250 comes from us and 250 comes from the district, whatever else they want. And then there you go. And then if they have an incentive, but you know, it's contract by contract, and that's where it gets a little tricky.
Might be important for us to know what is the range, because if we're gonna adopt this as a goal, we don't know how many districts benefit from this or how many are okay.
We could definitely provide data to you as far as how many current team mentors we have in place with those educators enrolled in team. We could easily get you those numbers. Separated by district, Gotti probably get those as well.
Do you know the range of stipends that are out there?
I've seen up to 7,000, 6,000. I've seen 2,000, and I've seen 500 for a team. For the whole year, it's a whole mentorship, because some of those teachers in our larger districts to like, for example, if you're at a high school and they do the after-school programming, they have those mandated, some of them are getting stipends that large every year.
Because that's if is that for being a cooperating like a supervising teacher or a team mentor?
Team mentor, depends on the district.
Because if you think about it in comparison, at times you do have to compete with sports.
Right.
You're getting paid 10,000
Yeah,
per season. Some districts do become.
some are paying
competitive
their,
if you want good people to continue being mentors.
right, some of them are paying their mentor teachers the same that they would pay them to do an after-school club, yes.
Are the apprenticeships identifying even more money for that? I'm getting confused with the language,
That's,
because when you're talking about,
That's why I was just saying to Jen, like, that might be a thing down the line that we talk about, like, having those be two separate pathways, because the waters do get mucky, right? Because then you have a cooperating teacher, which is then that, you have a student teacher that sits with them, and an apprenticeship could fall under something like that. And those are getting money from a EPP, from the district is, I mean, I don't know how it works, Lauren, you'd be able to speak to that better than I can. And then you have our team training pathway, which is all under that same umbrella. And those are the ones that are sitting with our beginning educators who are certified and getting them through their modules of their first 2 years. of teaching. So that's really what I'm talking about right now. That stipend that comes in is for those team mentors while their first year teachers are engaged in the team. There's a lot of paper writing. It's a lot of paper editing at this time. I mean, the team is in the process of being changed, and that's fine. But, you know, even if it goes to team 2.0 and it's more focused on mentoring, we still want to be properly supporting our educators, you know, because a lot of them are giving their prep times. A lot of them are reading papers late at night, helping and going back and forth. So.
I was just trying to figure out the imbalance, I think I'm hearing.
Yeah,
where the
yeah. Yes.
Registered apprenticeship.
It's so true. The apprenticeship program, and because there's federal money that comes in, so it is an uneven playing field without that.
So in writing this, and when it was proposed to go to 1,300, what was the expectation going to be for the districts? Because it was moving from the 500, which was a 50/50, to the 1,300.
Originally, when we wrote that, when we were talking about that money, we weren't trying to have the districts have greater financial responsibility. We're trying to get more money allotted to it so we could give stronger stipends. That was really what the goal is.
So keep the 250 for the district responsibility. If they choose to pay more than that, great. But the state responsibility would be between the 250 and the 1,300.
Yeah, we just wanted to be able to give them more money. Yeah, you know, as far as getting down to that nitty gritty, and I think it's to Cynthia's, Dr. Ritchie's point, to come back and to have a better understanding of who's doing what and how. I just don't know if at our level, we can say, oh, well, if you're a teacher here, you get this, and if you're a teacher here, you know what I mean? We kind of have to, my understanding would have to have a solid amount for everybody. Regardless of
Bargaining might have to.
right, exactly. And then so bargaining might be able to come in and
So then with that in mind, there was a motion to change it to state funded. I think that would still be accurate, but maybe we need to have some language in there. The districts keeping at their current obligations, like that 250.
I mean, that's in the statute. Statute is, it's already in the statute that way.
So keeping the friendly amendment then should keep it that way, where we don't have to worry about it being an unfunded burden on districts for more than the 250 that they're already required to pay. So we had a motion for the amendment. We had a second.
I'll send it.
Dr. Rowe,
Oh, the amendment.
the amendment. So we would just need to vote on the amendment and then we can vote on the whole. So all those in favor of the amendment, please raise your hand. And then now we'll go to a vote for the motion with the amended language. The friendly amendment was just to adjust it, and now we do the full motion for the full thing. All right, so now we're going to go ahead, and if there's no other discussion on that part, we're going to vote for the full motion, which was to endorse via a letter on behalf of the board, state-funded team stipend, Teach Connecticut marketing, and the software. All in favor, please raise your hand. Mouthful. Motion carries. And this- and then the other part that we will vote on is the focus for the leadership team that we are going to be working on, which is going to be the SPED, para, and pipeline. It really is just very general. It's just saying that, yes, like the leadership group, we'll continue that work to get things ready for us in August. At which time we can deliberate and adjust any kind of language or have those things ready. Okay, so I would take a motion for the leadership team to continue the work for the board related to focuses of areas on special education, paras, and pipeline.
The motion that the leadership team for the board prepare materials for us to focus on in areas of educators, special education, and
Second. Discussion on those? We'll go ahead and put it to a vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Unanimous. And then I think there was, oh, the voting. So we asked Karen to look into alternative voting for us, all special meetings for things like reports, and maybe take those off of our agenda so that we can focus on broader and fun things. Not that your reports aren't fun, Karen. I know that they're fun to craft. But if you could pull up that language that you had there before, related to the options for us to vote, and then we just have to take a formal vote on that so we can move that forward. Sure. So it was in the folder drop as well, but we can vote electronically by email or by mail. Voting window is open for a specific voting period. Once the window closes, the votes are tallied and are ratified at the next official meeting. Ballots can be distributed via email, electronic voting system like a poll can be used. Board members will have a period to object. If no objection is raised, the matter is treated as approved under the board's adoption procedure and adopted as approved at the next meeting. Previous notice means that notice of proposal to be brought up must be announced at its preceding meeting or must be included in all of them. Are we in favor of having this as an option for us so that we don't have to call for special meetings?
is there any reason to have the choice of electronic? I'm assuming it's electronically by email or by post office mail. Do we even need the post office
I
mail?
don't think that we do the post office mail in this day and age of polls and surveys. So I don't think that's a necessity. The board doesn't think we can have that struck through. That is something that is.
I don't think it's, and I just want to clarify, this would only be used for things where it's like receiving a report, not for things that it would benefit our board to discuss.
Correct.
Because I wouldn't necessarily want something to go up for a vote without us having a discussion, especially because like they change their mind all the time when they hear new information and we're all from different organizations with different outlook.
So I'm thinking things like reports that are required, especially the yearly reports, you would have to call another meeting. I'm thinking the calendar for each year. Those kinds of things that might not garner a lot of discussion around, but that are necessary for the board's progress and work that we do. Day-to-day things.
And is this a procedure that's done by other boards and organizations?
Good question.
It is. Norm. So I included the USPS option.
Yeah, that's what I
was in
figured.
there.
So if this is up and it's done by other Connecticut or state boards. councils or committees or what have you. That I can't answer. I can look into it, but I don't know. Advocate or motion to use this minus part 4 for reports and calendar item.
I think I would still want to keep part 4, but remove the USPS mail section. So it would specify that we'd be receiving this by.
So advocate or motion to accept this with the part 4 amended to remove USPS mail for the usage of reports by the board and calendar reports. Under approval by the so moved. Kristen, do we have a second? We have 2 seconds. Jenny and Elsa. Great. Barring any further discussion, raise your hand if you are in favor of. Goes unanimously. That's pretty much the majority of what we have talked about. If we want to return to the earlier discussion and continue on any of those items related to the focus to give the leadership team additional information, we can do that. We have about scheduled 35 more minutes. So I'll leave it to the board if they'd like to continue that discussion before our full adjourning. Then we are adjourned. I'll get a motion for adjournment. All right. Tiffany is motioning to adjourn and seconded in. I think by general consensus, we're good. Yeah. Oh, I have a question.
It was just a question about the focus leadership. Would it be helpful to survey, we'd be able to share ideas to the survey to help make some along?
Sure. Well, when we're meeting in July, we can kind of like put together some stuff and kind of put it out as like a survey if you want.
Leadership group's gonna be.
Yeah, we're gonna have like smaller meetings, not like these big meetings, a little, because we have a weekly leadership meeting currently, that we tend to get in preparation for the board meetings each month. So this would be something that we would work on to start prepping the materials, getting everything together in preparation for the August meeting.
If there's any information that you want stakeholders and students.
Yes, 100%.
Conversation, I can maybe.
All right, thank you. And then in addition to that, have the meetings on Thursday. Oh, so the letters that we'll write up, we'll send out to the board for review in advance, and then we can hand that over to FDE because they're going to do their governor's proposals, budgetary items, that they can support some of those items. But we'll send it out to the board for review first.
Just for competitive purposes, even if we propose something, the governor has like the last say.
Yeah.
But, so, and maybe some things as a department we're thinking about, and may not make it, because we have to let us support. In favor of supporting is just sometimes.
All right, perfect. Thank you all for coming in today. The next couple of meetings will be virtual, so it's good. And until then, if you need anything, please feel free to reach out to myself and Dr. Ritchie. And we're doing that work and get updates even through July, so you'll get it. Thank you.
Yes. When I say piece of the point, yeah. I was gonna use that.
That's every day. Before the rest of
Yeah.
2 year initials. August at least.
the.
I know. Tell me about that. I don't feel like you.
As a master.
Yeah, but I wasn't.
Right.
Like, online, that they have a master. So it's kind of.
Well, I
That master's degree stuff. Oh, I was like, hey, you know,